Hey, it's Karina Reichman, and you are listening to Comes a Time with Oteil Burbridge and Mike Fenoya. If you're digging the podcast, do these guys a favor and review and subscribe. It means a lot. Be sure to follow the pod on social media, YouTube, and if you're joining for bonus episodes and exclusive content, go to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get on the bus. And now, here's Mike and Oteil.
Hey, folks, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Comes to Time podcast. That's Oteil.
And that's Mike. We got a really good one for you today. A buddy of mine, Sean House, that I met my first year with Dead and Company. We were in rehearsals and we had a day off. And Chris Sharuki, God rest his soul, called me and said, "Hey, Tuesday, we're going to go see a movie. You want to come?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I went. Got the Uber to drop me off. I was just in some nondescript industrial park. I'm calling Shariki, go, "Dude, there's no movie theater here. Like, there's nothing here. Like, I don't even know where I am. Is this the right place?" He goes, "Just hang out, you know." And then someone came out, brought me in this nondescript building. We go down through these hallways, and down in this area is this, turns out to be the first THX theater ever built, and it was built by George Lucas, and it was 3210 Productions, where they did everything from Empire Strikes Back on. So Indiana Jones, I mean, we could go through such a long list of movies that you just wouldn't believe. And we saw a Aliens movie that had not aired yet or hadn't come out in the theaters yet, and afterwards Sean pulled me aside and gave me a tour. Him and his wife Lisa gave me a tour of the whole facility, where my mind was just completely blown. And I'll let him tell you all the stuff that happened after that. But yeah, being in George Lucas's like spot, where they did so much, was just mind-blowing stuff that I'd seen as a kid. He's a great guy, and his story is just amazing. And you don't want to miss this one.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, for joining us. And that was really neat. It's cool just to have another conversation with someone in the TV production business and all of that. It's a blast. So thank you all for watching and listening. If you're enjoying, go to patreon.com/comesatimepod for more bonus footage and content each week. And like us, share us, subscribe, rate, and review. It goes a long way. And we will see you guys soon. Enjoy the episode.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me.
Truly an honor.
Excellent.
It's so funny because I got back on Facebook. I got off for a long time. And I got back on because there's an older gentleman that I wanted to connect with, and he doesn't do Instagram. So then I saw all these messages going way back, and I saw one of yours. And I was like, "Oh man, we got to have him on the podcast."
Perfect.
Yeah. So
thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. I want to revisit like how we met just a little bit, because that time Charuki told me, it's like, I think it was the first year I joined, right?
Yeah.
The band. And Charuki said, "Oh, we got a Tuesday night off here. Come see a movie with us." And I was like, "All right." And then I end up in this industrial park. I see a address there's no movie theater in sight. I'm like, "Yo, dude, what the F is going on? Like, there's nothing here." He goes, "Just hang out for a minute." And then someone comes, and then of course we go into 3210, which I'll let you tell people what that is, because it was like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like, you walk through this industrial park, and all of a sudden you're like, "What the?"
Yeah. I mean, even the outside of the building doesn't tell you anything.
Nothing.
The great part about it is that the way I was introduced to the building was back in the early 80s. I was watching news over my grandparents' house, and Walter Cronkite was doing a special. And he's standing out in front of one of the other buildings, and he's like, in the sleepy little hollow of Marin in the sleepy little town of Santa Fe lies Hollywood's best secret, George Lucas's industrial light magic. And he shows the front of the building, and all it said was Kerner Optical. And he walks in like Darth Vader's there and everything. So yeah, and you got to walk into it and into the original THX theater.
Wow.
Dude, it was crazy. And then there was whatever uh, episode of Aliens was that had not yet come out, right? It
Right,
hadn't
right.
quite been released. So I'm like texting my brother, like, yo, bro, like, you're not gonna believe this. And you come in and there's this theater, just like, it really is. It's kind of mind blowing. And then after the movie's over, we're like, oh, that was cool, you know? And then I think it was you that was pulled me. It was like, you stay. Somebody pulled my collar. It was like, you stay. And then you gave me this tour that just explained to people, because I don't want to tell you. It's
Well, as I said, this was the Northern California home of Industrial Light and Magic. Every film that George did, from Empire Strikes Back on, was done there. All the Indiana Jones, Star Treks, Transformers, Terminators, Back to the Futures, Howard the Duck. E.T. I mean, the hundreds and hundreds of films were done here. And it was crazy because when it was ILM, the people that worked in the neighborhood that weren't part of it didn't even know we were there, because we just kept on leaving the old business signs up and everything like that and just going about our business.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it was just, and we hold screenings all the time. And like I said, the original THX theater, we'd be blowing up like right next to the theater. It has its own foundation. It's like a building within a building. It's all air gapped all the way around because of the THX standard. And right outside the door of the theater is the main stage, which is where we build things and where we blow the stuff up.
Wow.
and they didn't hear that because if it was a building within a building, that people couldn't hear the explosions.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, every now and then you can, but yeah, they
You just hire a guy to go outside and be like, achoo.
Exactly. Cough for me. Cough.
Oh God! Wow. Anybody else feel that smog today? That's great.
I remember you showing me the shrapnel in the walls. I was like, what are all those pock marks? He's like, shrapnel.
That's amazing.
I was like, oh, is it for real explosions?
It really
Those models look so cool, like the city. You know, it's all shrunk down, and you are walking around it and stuff. But I just thought these are the coolest models you'll ever see in your life. You know?
Yeah, and half of them, as you remember, we blew up.
What a fun job! What an amazing gig!
Yeah,
you just get to be a kid experiencing fireworks for the first time over and over and over again. Oh yeah, it's awesome.
As my wife would say, so what'd you do at the office today, dear?
Blew it up.
Blew it up, you know.
Well, it's so much fun because you have the fun part of, like, you would build the models as kids.
Yes.
So now you're like getting to do that on steroids, and then you can't blow them up at home. So you got that whole part that's like, you know, amazing. Like,
when you were a kid, did you love, I remember the first time I realized that if you put your G.I. Joe guys in a Dixie cup of hairspray, and hold a magnifying glass to the Dixie cup, it would all just catch on fire and you could just melt them. And boy, what a life-changing event that was.
Yep, that and the pellet gun with the little army guys, and they'd sit on branches and you'd snipe them off and everything.
Yeah. I accidentally hit a bird one time, and I was like, "That's it, I'm done." Putting the BB, I gave my BB gun away. And I was like, "I can't." Yeah, the bird did okay, but still.
Instead, my friends hit me, and I hit them with the BB gun. So. Then it turned into bottle rockets and Roman candles, and all the things that we could do back then without getting in trouble.
Yeah,
it's nice to keep that as a gig as an adult, huh? Being able to bring that with you. It's sweet.
Well, it was wild because when Star Wars came out, I was 8 years old, and they had the trading cards with them, and
Yeah.
they had different color borders on each set of trading cards. And the orange card set came out, and I looked at it, and they, for the first time, they had behind the scenes, and they had people making models, and I'm like, wait, you can have a grown-up job building models for the movies? This is awesome. And I wrote to them when I was 8. I wrote to them when I was 12. I wrote to them when I was 16.
That's awesome.
You know,
Did they
and
write back?
yeah, they did. I wish I had at least one of those letters. I found a couple of drafts of the ones that I wrote when we were cleaning up the studio, but yeah, none of the letter. I could have sworn I had kept them all, but I couldn't find. Every time I went back home, couldn't find them.
Oh,
But
man.
doesn't matter. I'm there, or I was there.
So
Now
how did
you're
you
like,
end up
"Do I write
finally
back or
getting in
not?"
there?
I'm sorry.
I said, how did you end up finally getting the job with them? That must have been
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. Well, what happened was I was in the Navy from 88 to 94. I was doing aviation electronics. And during that period of time, I got into skydiving. And I helped start a skydiving drop zone down in San Diego. And on the 1 year anniversary, there was a terrible, there was a boogie out in Eloy, Arizona, which is a skydiving get together. And a bunch of our jumpers went to this. And there was a bad accident. And we lost one of our drop zone members, and another one had his left leg traumatically amputated from the force of the impact, and his right leg was broken in 22 places.
Oh my
And
God.
at the time, Lupe was 51 years old, Lupe Gonzalez, and he was my first jump instructor. And so when he was finally able to be transferred back to San Diego, I kept on bugging it, visiting him at the hospital and at home and everything. And I knew that after the first month or so, the people visiting you drops off massively, because they're like, oh, I don't want to go again. He should be doing better. And I kept on bugging Lupe and saying, hey, listen, can I help? And one day he asked me to take him to physical therapy to give his wife a break. I said, sure. And I wound up taking him 3 days a week, and Marta would take him 3 days a week. And one Friday morning, we're in there. And now, again, this is 93, 94. So this term was not bandied about very much, but Lupe used to call the physical therapist his physical terrorist. And the guy would be leaning into his leg, just trying to get like that much movement out of the leg that it was still there, because the bones just kept trying to knit all around the knee. And Lupe was holding on to my hand, and he let out this scream. And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lupe," and he's got tears streaming down his face, but clear voice. And he looks at me and he goes, "Sean, what's been your lifelong dream? But don't answer me now." He goes, "I want you to think about it over the weekend." And yeah, let me know. I'm curious to find out. Just like one of the things you've always wanted to do. Okay, and so Monday came around. Marta took him on Saturday. Sunday he had off, and Monday I took him again, and we were in the same exact spot. And the physical therapist was leaning in, and Lupe's leg broke. It cracked. And this happened many times over the course of physical therapy. And he let out a yell, and he was squeezing my hand. It was like turning purple. I'm like, I'm gonna have a broken hand. But again, with the tears streaming down, clear voice, crystal clear, and he looks at me and he goes, "So, Sean," and the therapist is like, "Oh, we're sorry, Lupe," and we're walking along and everything like that, getting him into the operating room, and he goes, "Did you think about my question?"
Wow.
I was like, "Lupe, yeah, but now's not the time or the place." And he goes, "I can't think of a better time or place to find out about what your dream was." And I was like, okay. I always wanted to be in ILM, in the model shop, building models. And he goes, "Then why aren't you?" I said, "Well, because I'm in the Navy." He goes, "Well, you can get out of the Navy." I said, "Well, I just put in my reenlistment papers." And he said, "Well, the thing is that until the day you reenlist, those things don't matter." You have to be there and sign it on that day.
Wow.
And I like, yeah, but Lupe, I'd be an idiot to get out if I mean, I'm coming up on the, you know, I have 6 years in. This will put me at the 10-year mark. I'd be an idiot to get out at that point. You know what? And he goes, so at 10 years is better than now, and it's better than 20 years, and this is your dream. And he just kept on shooting down every single argument I had about why I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, I pulled my re-enlistment papers, and then on September 1st, I separated from the Navy, and I flew up to Northern California in early November. And my whole goal was to get a place to live and potentially a job. And I was sitting on the hotel bed. I had looked up the Walter Cronkite video in the library and found the New York Times article and wrote down Kerner Optical and everything, and got up here on a Friday evening, and I was sitting on the Motel 6 right on Francisco Boulevard there. And I had asked the guy at the front desk, I'm like, do you know where Industrial Light and Magic is? And he goes, no. He goes, it's somewhere around here. I heard. I don't know. Okay. And went back to them, and I'm like, where could they hide Kerner Optical? Where could they hide Kerner Company? And I was like, Kerner Street. And I took the yellow pages, yes, those things, opened it up, and they had the map in the front of San Rafael. And I looked, and I was like, Kerner Street, Kerner Boulevard. Oh, E8. You sunk my battleship. It's holy cow, it's right behind the motel here. And so I hopped in the car, and I made the turn onto Bellum, and then made the right turn onto Kerner, and I'm creeping along at about 6:30, 7 o'clock on a Friday evening, and all of a sudden I spotted the sign that said the Kerner Company. I'm like, oh! I park the car, jump out, head across the street to the front door, and it's this Kerner Optical Research Lab. I'm like, oh my God, this is it. But it had Mylar on the door, so you couldn't see it. So I cut my hands over my eyes, and I looked through and jumped back because Darth Vader was right there.
Oh,
Right
wow.
there. You know,
How neat.
like, oh.
Perfect place for Darth.
Yeah. And so I put my hand back over my eyes, and I'm looking, and I see the matte painting from the movie Hook of Never Neverland and the undersea compass rose and everything like that.
Wow.
As they were flying towards it, and somebody tapped me on my shoulder, and I was like, I turned around, and he said, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" As a security guard. I said, "This is Industrial Light and Magic," and he goes, "Sir, this is private property." I said, "Yeah, but it's Industrial Light and Magic," and he goes, "Sir, it's private property. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I was like, "Okay, but I'll be back." And there was a bar at the end of the street. Went down there, made friends with the bartender. His name was Sam. He was a World War II paratrooper, and he referenced me to friends of his who had a catering business and a bar down the street. And the short version is that a year later, I got into Jay Friendly's. Sam hired me, and I started ILM Appreciation Night on Wednesday night, half off first drink, 25% off all the rest. All they had to do was show their little ILM key card. And
smart man. You're a smart man.
Made friends that way.
That's right.
And then I was working on getting into the union. I did that. And then in 99, I got my first job at ILM. So,
wow.
Man.
Planet of the Apes.
Wow.
That was your first gig?
Yep, that and it was at the same time as Jurassic Park: Lost World.
Damn.
Yeah,
I love the Planet of the Apes movies. Those are excellent, all of them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this next one coming out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Otto.
No, you go. You go.
Well, like I work in like production and post-production for Impractical Jokers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot different, but still, you know, you go from like a writer to kind of like a producer, and you're on set, and I'm watching it all happen. Also kind of having like a don't break anything kind of moment. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I am replaceable. I'm the most replaceable guy here. So did you have this kind of like oh my God, I got it. It's like the first morning jitters, and you kind of go in and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? Like, what was
Oh,
that
yeah.
like? The day you got it, you walked in the door as an employee of the door that you were peeking in. It's a big
Yeah.
moment.
Oh, it was huge. And yeah, and some of the guys in the shop turn around and was like, aren't you the bartender? I was like, oh,
That's hilarious.
you know,
Aren't you the bartender?
What is he doing here?
what's he doing here? Isn't he like a little Star Wars fan down the street? Kids these days.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, it was absolutely incredible. Just and then from there, to have the people that all of a sudden you're in and around them, and they were your heroes growing up, because I mean I got all the books on them. There was the industry magazine called Cinefex, as well as Starlog, and I knew who these people were when I saw them. They were like my heroes, and then to have them be coworkers, and then from there to become dear friends. It's just been an amazing journey. Absolutely incredible.
So when did you meet the Grateful Dead guys and start doing the whole beam and the drum?
Yeah.
What do you call that thing? Well, there's been a couple of them, right?
Yeah. I've done let's see, the Infinite Beast,
The
and that
Infinite
was
Beast.
that was the one that is in the shape of an infinity symbol that stretched apart, and it had the drum tables in the middle and everything. Then there was the Mask of Ramu. As far as the name, that's all on Mickey.
Yeah.
But that was with all the touch drums and everything like that were all lit up on the inside. And yeah, there's been a bunch of things. The bells that I did that he had out on this last tour.
Yeah.
There were like 6 of them and everything like that. Yeah, I was doing all those tuned bells and cowbells. And so what happened is that when it was ILM, the Grateful Dead had a warehouse just down the street.
Yeah.
And so they knew of Industrial Light and Magic and everything. And they also knew that they could be trusted with a secret. And when they decided that apparently when they got back together to practice for the Fairly Well, when they were getting together for that tour, they figured out that they couldn't practice at TRI, Bobby Weir's studio in northern San Rafael. It just wasn't big enough. I mean, they could do it, but it wouldn't be the same as getting the whole stage set up indoors and everything. And so one of their managers called over to 3210 and said, "Hey, listen, do you guys still have that big stage, and do you still keep secrets?" And the answer was yeah to both. And they decided to book the stage for 2 months. And during that time, we have tenants in and around the building, all film and television related, but we couldn't tell anybody who was there. And nobody was allowed to walk through the theater or the stage. And the whole courtyard was filled with big rigs and everything like that. And to me, I was like, well, this is obvious. But the thing is that nobody could see in from the streets. And I think because the whole thing is a sound stage, and they were practicing mostly in the afternoon or evenings, everybody else was gone, so nobody heard anything.
Nice.
Yeah, but there's still all that stuff there. It's like, what's going on here? Oh, nothing.
Oh, yeah, nothing to see.
Birthday party.
Along,
Birthday party.
Yeah.
Good thing to see Garcia walk by. They'd be like, whoa.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he had passed.
Yeah. Well,
point,
yeah.
but...
Yeah. Or Trey.
Yeah.
Or any of them, really. Yeah.
Or any of them.
Yeah. It was. When Bruce came in, it was like, okay. But yeah, we were told we couldn't go through.
Not even you.
Even the people that were a part of 3210 and management. And that promptly, I went, I'm going and introducing myself to everybody. And I introduced myself to Cherokee. I was like, "Where's the stage manager at?" And he's like, "That's Cherokee. He's over there."
You don't want to talk to him.
And I was like, I walk over, and here's this big, gruff stage manager with a goatee and everything like that. And he's like, "What the fuck do you want?" I'm like, "Hey, my name's Sean. I'm the shop supervisor. I run the effects department here. I just wanted to stop on by. Thank you for coming. And if you need anything, let me know." He goes, "What the fuck could you possibly give us?" And I go, "Hey, I'm local 16 as well. I understand where the attitude comes from. Don't worry about it." And he goes, "All right, you're good." And then
Hilarious.
then later on, it was like, a couple of days later, he comes over, knocks on the shop door, and he's like, "You serious about making something?" I said, "Yeah, whatever you want." And he goes, "I need these blocks about 4 inches square, and they've got to have a hole in the middle of it, and it's got to be, smoothed over on the sides." I went, "Oh, you need road box, the wheel locks for road boxes." And he goes, "Yeah. Oh, you know about that? Okay, yeah." I said, "How many you need?" He goes, "Can I get 2 dozen?" I said, "Sure." And so set him out, whipped him out because I had I had a little router jig just for that, and turned them around inside of an hour or so, and painted them all flat black. And it was May, so therefore we were able to put them outside, and it dried and everything like that. I walked over, and he goes, "That was fast." I went, "I wasn't going to mess around with roadbox blocks." And he goes, "Oh, great." Next thing you know, I'm building different things. He introduces me to Mickey's manager at the time. And then he introduced me to Mickey's drum tech, Jimmy Robinson. And next thing you know, I'm looking at the kit. I'm going, I said, "Do you have a problem with these stick holders?" And they were the drum stick holders that were fabric, and they had a metal ring, and they collapse and everything. And he goes, "Oh, those things are horrible." He goes, "We have to replace them just about every 3 shows." I'm like, "Can I try something?" And so I made these stick holders out of ABS plastic with actual clamps on them, and they're still in use today.
Yep.
They never broke, and they have
I'm
foam
using them
padding
all the time.
Yep, and then made longer ones for his bows and his different pieces that he uses on the beam. And then it was, "Hey, can you build the beam?" "Sure, why not?"
Oh,
Like,
once
you're shaking
Mickey
your head.
finds out, it's like,
you
"Hey, I
build
got
a-
this idea.
Yeah.
Can you build me a
beam?
monster that's like, like
What a great sentence. Can you build a beam?
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
I mean, that's what we do.
That's
Is
like
we
say yes
yes.
now and find out later. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
you're sitting in a Zoom meeting, and you're like, "Okay, I understand. I'm talking about the last Star Wars movie. Can you make a planet explode, but make it explode like no other planets exploded before? We want it to have volume. We don't want it to look like sparks." Sure.
So
You get off
fun
the
to say
phone.
yes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you get off the phone, and your bosses look at you and go, "How are you going to do that?" "I don't know.
It's the
I'll
best.
figure it out."
Like we
But-
did the last 30 things we didn't know how we were going to do.
Exactly. It's
It's really incredible that it's the people. Like, I love that. I love hearing that because we had a guy, he's one of the art directors on the Jokers. I love him. His name's Will. Shout out to Will. He's the best. But we would do these bits where it was like product gestures or various different games where we're coming up with like harebrained things to like make the guys see them and immediately die laughing,
right.
So there were like one was like a tire baby, and it's just a tire with like a baby's head and baby's hands and baby's arms, and like, you just take a baby doll and whatever. That's like an
Right.
easy build, but we would have him build like amazing things to the point where like we almost had to like replicate a NASA gravitational field. So like he had to
Right.
like strap one of the Jokers in and spin them. And he was doing all of it. And it's just watching him do what he does and his process never says no, never says no.
Right.
And then he just takes it to the lab and builds our concepts. And then he brings it and it's 10 times better than anybody ever could have expected. And it's like,
Right.
dude, Will, you're the guy, you're the alchemist. You're like the guy who makes these visions come to life. And it's just so cool. Cause I literally like, I don't know. We could think of funny stuff, but to see it built, to watch a planet explode like never before.
Right.
Like
right.
you're the guy who makes it happen,
Yeah.
That's killer, dude.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just fun.
It's magic. It's
Yeah,
magic.
I remember
that's
you explaining to me how they would the explosion part, like how many different ways you filmed it,
oh yeah.
and I guess slow mo or whatever. And I was just like the whole thing because you really don't get. I mean, you get one chance to blow it up, right? How many did you make?
We did for that one we did two just in case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
And
still,
yeah, oh, most
Expensive
of the time
accidents.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, one and done. And yeah, we filmed that particular thing at 1,000 frames a second. For those uninitiated, normal film camera will do around 24 frames a second, and that's what gives the illusion of persistence of motion. In other words, that they're not all still pictures, but they're pictures stitched together that give the eye the idea that they're watching something real. So 24 frames a second is what a traditional film would be, and we were filming at 1,000 frames a second. But then what happens is, and the planet goes like this, bang, it's gone. It's just gone.
And you're like, I hope that was good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Then you go
Yeah.
back to the monitor, and the guys working there. Hold on, I got to do my secret data stuff to get this, so we get this rendered properly. And you're like sitting there, and all of a sudden it comes on, and so that 1,000 frames gets played back at 24 frames a second, which slows the action way down. And that big bang all of a sudden becomes 10 seconds of explosion. 10 seconds is a long explosion.
yeah.
It sure
Yeah.
is. It sure is.
So yeah, it's fun stuff like that.
What was the first thing you did that was like you had to pinch yourself? I mean, I know from getting in the door, you were probably pinching yourself, but that first thing where you were like, "Oh shit! Like this is it." Like,
I think at that place or in the film industry in general.
no, there.
There. Um, when we did the nuclear explosion for Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we had this town we called Doomtown. And as they're describing the shot, I was like, what? We're going to make a nuclear explosion like you see with the fire wave that comes through and then the blast wave and people just like spontaneously combust. We're actually gonna pull this off. And we made this whole town of houses and scale cars and everything like that. And we literally made the houses stick frame construction. We milled down all this wood into like little flat toothpicks and everything like that, and put it
Wow.
all together that way so that when the blast waves would hit it, it would come apart and splinter like a real house would, and then blow sideways.
Yeah.
It was crazy, and the thing was, it was for a freaking Indiana Jones movie. Didn't matter whether you liked it or not. You were working on an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah. Wow. So
Amazing.
what was the thing? What was the thing in the film industry in general?
You're gonna laugh. A Weird Al Yankovic music video.
Yeah.
I love
Which
it.
one? Which one? Which one?
It was The Saga Begins, and it was we were doing quote unquote a special edition of it. I don't know that it actually ever got into ever got aired. I've not been able to find it. I talked to several people who worked on it, and they're like, yeah, I don't think it actually made it all the way to post-production. But the whole idea was that we were doing a special edition, much like George did special editions of Star Wars, but we were doing it off of episode 1. So I played Darth Maui instead of Darth Maul. And I
Maui.
built all the props and I built everything, and then I get to meet Weird Al. I'm like, oh, wow, this is really cool. This is the industry. They were doing
Yeah.
all this stuff. But
That's so neat.
yeah, it's amazing the depth and breadth of the things I've been exposed to.
It's incredible too when you kind of like it almost changes your perception of time in reality when you're able to, I shot a pilot for a TV show that I was pitching last summer,
Mhm.
and we shot days worth of footage, right? About a week and a half's worth of footage. And then we whittled it down to a 23-minute pilot, which then had to be cut in half and then had to be cut in half from there. So we had to take 14 minutes and turn it into like a 7-minute sizzle. And so and I did 6:59 just to, show Seven who's
Yeah,
boss,
yeah, you go.
And but it was just the looking at something and going, how do I turn this into this, and figuring it out and doing it and overlaying and you like manipulating time and all of that. Like, it's just amazing how you can, like you said, a planet blows up in, right? But you make it into this 10-minute, you make a whole city get wiped out with nuclear, it's such magical stuff that and on any level really, but this was just to see weeks turn into a half hour, turn into 14 minutes, turn into 7 minutes was just like, this is unbelievable. It's truly a magic to itself. I'm not saying I had the magic, but it's like watching and working with the editors.
Right.
Unreal. I just like, what if we can do this? And they're like, sure. And it's boop, 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 done. There's 3 minutes carved off. And I'm like, wow, you guys are seriously like wizards, man. It's unreal. Post-production doesn't get enough. Yeah, they don't get enough credit.
They would never think going the other direction, this 3-minute thing you see actually was like this. It took an enormous amount of work that got, cut down and cut down and cut down.
Condensed.
You're like, oh, that's just a 3-minute thing. It's like, no, man, that was days of
Oh yeah.
Well, and you know what it was? It was like, if you want anybody to watch this, don't give them a 20-something minute. Like, they're going to look at the time and go, nah, I don't got time. They wanted shorter than 7 minutes. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, it's TikTok now. You got to hit it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. They have like 5 to 7 seconds in the beginning to like grab attention.
I found out when I had another dream shot. I was hired on Fast and Furious 8, and I was the on-set dresser for it. But we filmed for just about 6 months all over the world, and we were second unit. And second unit is without the principal actors, for those out there who don't know what it is. Basically, it's all the action sequences. And so we called ourselves the action team because we filmed most of the movie. Because the actors, they can't put in those cars and spin them out. They're on a green screen. With lights just spinning around and making it look like they do. And that's when I spent 2.5 months in Iceland.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about
that.
Yeah, baby.
Oh,
wow.
And so for a month and a half of that, I was out on this ice lake, and every day with 30, 60 automobiles racing down, blowing up, shooting machine guns, doing crazy stuff. They yell cut, and I get my little army of guys and gals together, and we go sweep the snow so they weren't tire tracks and everything. And, the whole sequence. I was told that Fast and Furious 7 had no sequence in the entire movie that was longer than 12 frames. That's how fast the cuts were.
It's nuts.
And you don't even realize it. And they said a lot of times the cuts are like 3 or 4 frames. And I said, that's like subliminal advertising. They're like, it's crazy. There's thousands and thousands of edits and cuts in that, and I never even realized it. So
I can't actually watch movies like that because and I'm glad you said this, because now I know the math on it. Why?
Yeah.
But I would just tell my wife, I was like, the way it's just like this, like something in my brain starts to shut down.
Yeah.
It's too much for my nervous system. Is what it is.
Yeah.
And I just go,
I remember first noticing that, O'Teal. I had kind of a similar thing with the Jason Bourne movies, where it was like, it's a car chase and it's around Europe, and they're in these tiny little streets, and he's driving down like
Stairs.
literal stairways and going the opposite way on ramps and slamming things. But I'm realizing every time he makes a pivotal move, it pans to him in the car, just clutch, shift,
It's just
gas.
like
Beep, bop, boop, boop, boop. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, oh, a guy on a bike slides out of the way. So it's like all of this like smoke and mirrors that's going on. And then the car just kind of cruises away and whatever. And it's like, oh my God, what the hell? What did I even just watch happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just all like boom, 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 boom. It's a lot. It's a lot to kind of digest, especially in the theater too.
Well, and
Which
it's
is
also on YouTube now because I see it with my kid which we completely banned it now. And thank God they're like, I got them back. It only took a week, but I noticed the cuts were the same. And his brain can actually process faster because that's what his brain is used to. It ain't
Yeah.
bothering his brain.
Right.
Although I think it might have been doing some kind of damage. But, you know, I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like the time that they live in, his brain will, because they'll be showing stuff that he's looking at it just to learn how to do something in the video game. And then he'll turn it off and go right to the Nintendo and boom, do it. And I was like, I would have to slow that, you know, like watch it and then stop and then go, okay, and then stop and then stop. And he's just like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
It's like freaky, man.
Yeah, they have computer brains.
The thing is that, you know, when you take an action sequence, and I'm just thinking of like E.T. when they're pedaling away from the feds and they've got E.T. on the bicycle and everything like that, and all of a sudden they all rise up into the air and they go across the full moon setting or the setting sun and everything, and it's just such a beautiful shot, and you can sit there and look at it and take in the beauty and the detail, and the detail's perfect. You can't tell that they're little models this, you know, about that big. I think that that's lost nowadays because people are not paying attention to the detail. It's quick pieces of motion and blurring of things, and they're not paying attention to what the story is. They're just so wrapped up in the action, and that's the way that they're doing things now. So
yeah, they're not given the choice.
yeah,
No.
right, exactly.
You know, even if they'd like to, it's not there for them. It's just,
Well,
you know.
yeah, and you think about those like pivotal scenes that like stick out in your memory as like the most breathtaking, like when Wizard of Oz, right? When they pan back and they see them skipping down the yellow brick road towards Oz, and that just gorgeous like landscape almost, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
nowadays
the care
that would be,
went into that.
yeah, the care that went into that. Where now it's like, can I say into my AI app, like,
Right.
make a poppy field with a golden, you know, sidewalk going towards a glowing palace, and then boom, there it is, you know?
Yeah,
It's weird. It's very weird.
going to be strange to see how things evolve.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's going to be a reset. I really do.
Okay.
Because it's like every empire falls.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's a certain unsustainability of things that I think where you have to just like go. And I don't know how it's going to happen. You know, this is all speculation. It's all a feeling. But I know like the reason that I got into what I got into and Mike got into what he got into and Sean, you got into what you got into is this attention to detail to make an experience that can be savored. None of this can be savored. It's like it's always on to the next, on to the next. I need the next one. I need the next one. I need the next one.
Yep.
And it's not like, you know, we're all about these moments that are like, oh, remember that moment? Yeah. You know, like I saw the first Star Wars in the theater, and it was just like just so many moments that were, and you think about all that went into that, and I think that kind of stuff, it's got to come back, man. It's got to come back. I don't know how, you know, I really don't, but I think it will, because there's even like the way you got to it was so magic. You know, this guy in this deepest pain, like what are you asking me? Like right now, like, but I've done this with so many people. I was like, if you had $40 million and you didn't have to do anything, what would you do? It's amazing how many of them haven't even thought about it. I was like, wow, I'm so lucky my parents taught me to dream.
Yeah.
Because I could come up with 5 things right off the top of my head that were probably unrealistic and I could probably never do them, but I could tell you what they were, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And for him to do that, you know, and then come back later in the leg, but to me, that's a mystical, that's like out of a movie,
Yeah.
right? It's like J.K. Rowling when her mom's dying and she's like, you always wanted to write those kid stories. You know, she's living in her freaking car on what, you know,
Right. Right.
and she was like, write that, you know, on her deathbed, write that story, you know, and then now she's a billionaire.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I love that whole, that's why I think it's got to come back because we survive off magic, you know, and the way you even came to that is, I love, that's what this podcast is all about, right, Mike? Like that story, that dude going, hey, man.
It's just, yeah. I mean, he put his
What you
pain
wanna
aside.
do?
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, really
And
is.
you asked about the first time I was on set that I was like, wow. But there was a time it wasn't even on set. It was in the office over by the stage. And my friend had called me up. I was working on some pilot out in town. And this is in 2010, early 2010. And he goes, hey, I want you to interview for a job this week. Or what are you doing on Thursday? I said, well, Thursday I'll be off of this. I said, wait, Brian, why do you want me to interview? I already work there. He goes, I can't tell you. Okay. So I come down on Thursday and he goes, dress as if you are going for an interview. I said, for a film interview or for a job interview? He goes, right in between the two. I went, okay, no t-shirt, right, but I can wear jeans.
A tie, but the top button's unbuttoned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I went into this room and this English gentleman was there. And we sat down, you know, exchanged pleasantries and everything. And he has a whole bunch of pictures on the desk in front of him. And I was trying not to look down, but then he starts holding them up and he's saying, you know, and I'm looking at the images and the pictures. And basically what happened was that he said that they had filmed this movie and then they realized that they needed to do some reshoots and they had to recreate the sets that they had done in Prague back here in the United States. And we were just going to do 5 sequences. Okay. But I'm looking and I'm like, wait, these are black men in U.S. Army uniforms. And isn't that a P-51 there in the background? And he goes, yeah. I said, is this a Tuskegee Airman? He goes, yeah. I went, oh, wow. I was like, Red Tails. He goes, that's the name of the movie. I went, oh, okay. I didn't expect that. And then we're talking for a couple of minutes more. And he said, and George wants to have something in the upper right-hand corner of the screen here. And I went, George. And he goes, he looks at me. He's like, yeah, George Lucas. And I went, what is he on this movie? He goes, oh, he's the producer and the director. And I was like,
tie.
oh, yeah, exactly. You're like,
yes, sir. Of course.
and
Sir.
I was like, oh my goodness. And I asked the gentleman at the end, I said, how many other people am I interviewing against? He goes, oh, we have a couple of other people coming up from LA to interview. I went, okay. He goes, don't worry, I'll let you know before the end of the week. And I'm like, today's Thursday. Okay. And I got the job.
Sick.
I was George Lucas's prop master on a movie about the Tuskegee Airmen because I loved World War II aviation, and it's Tuskegee Airmen I wrote my term paper on in college.
Wow.
It was absolutely amazing. And then I got to go to we recreated the World War II airfields, and it was just incredible. And then meeting some of the original Tuskegee Airmen, yeah, it was just absolutely incredible. And then going back over to Prague and then back here for more stuff. It was that was an amazing experience to work for my childhood hero directly
on your favorite subject. Yeah,
that you've done, because and that's why we don't believe in coincidence over here at Come to
Right.
Time. I know you don't either. What we got going on Iceland and the elves, we don't. It's like, oh, I just happen
Yeah.
to do my paper. And in my family, if you're black, I was born in '64.
Right.
Man, when that movie came out, like, that was huge for the black community, man. Huge. Just so huge. So I didn't even realize that, all the time we've known each other. But of course, I shouldn't be surprised by the coincidence. Although I do remember I think that was one of the things that I saw on one of the posters.
Yeah. Right
when
by
I
the
was
theater
at
door.
32. Yeah.
You did the tour. Sometimes we kind of like realize while we're talking, obviously this is free form conversation and we don't plan anything, but like light bulbs will go off, right? And I was thinking about how it could be important and definitely beneficial for people who are listening to hear from you how important it is to like embrace change and be prepared to adapt and react to things, because in your career, just like in ours, you can't hold on to the past. You can't go, no, this is how you make a building explode. Right? Like you got to be prepared for. So like in your opinion, or if like someone ever like asked you, like how important is it, and what are some maybe advice that you would give a young you just getting into it today, right? About like accepting change and preparing for change and how important that is.
I would definitely say that every single moment is going to be change. And the only thing that doesn't change as much is the time spent on set, because that becomes your second family.
Yeah.
And it's good to go visit your second family every now and then. But you have to be prepared for change throughout. A movie gets constant rewrites. You'll have been working on something for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden you get different color script pages in, and you're reading and you're like, wait, where's the sequence I'm working on? And it's gone. And you have to just put down your tools on whatever it was you've been working on for all that time, and then come up with the new thing.
And they go, oh, we forgot to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
that's a lot.
And then the other one is, of course, when you arrive on set and the director goes, oh, I have an idea. Hey, special effects. Can we have his hand fall off?
Yes. You go, yes.
Sure. Yeah, sure. We're going to need an extra hour.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The stress that, I mean, it's just, and you can see when people that handle change, like how they handle it. And it's like, you can see people kind of like have to like literally digest like everything I was planning on doing today has just changed for the 10th day in a row. Yeah. That's a lot. And some people are able to go, yeah, sure.
Yeah. This is
and
what it
other
is.
people are like, wait, what are you talking about? No, like not again.
Although, trust me, a lot of times I'm sitting there going,
yeah, inside you're like, oh, spent 3 weeks on this
fighting a belt. Like, yes.
A lot of times I look back on my life and I go, oh, whatever mystical force was orchestrating all this put me there so I would be ready for this. So like when I met Colonel Bruce Hampton, he was a total alien. So the all there is we're going to show up and he's going to try to ask us to play something that's not as having anything to do with sound or music or whatever. It's just like all of it was just completely bananas. Like there was no floor, there's no ceiling, there's no up, there's no down. And then when I get the Allman Brothers gig, it's like, bananas. Yeah. But I'm like, okay, I'm used to like total bananas.
Right.
So that prepared me for this, which then prepared me for the next level of crazy, which is the Grateful Dead world. And I'm like, still a little flustered. And I was like, wait, I got this. This is really
that crazy reserve. Yeah.
So it's that whole thing of like when you look back on your life and you're like, oh, right, your Navy stuff it's like all of
Your book report
The book
or
report,
your
yeah,
senior thesis. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And
See,
then you have here's another one. O'Teal, you're gonna start laughing. Then you have, okay, now it's Dead and Company, and you're building, you're building a beam for Bill Walton at Mickey's request, and okay, and then you get the call, and you're like, oh, I got to answer. It's Mickey. Hey, Beamster. Hey, listen. We can't talk about it, but we're doing a show coming up, and it's a New Year's show, and I need a flying joint, and it's got a light, and it's got a smoke, and it's got to fit 2 people. So, can you do this? Mickey, hold on 1 second. I'm going to step outside because there's something else going on in the background. Say again. I need a flying joint, and it's got a smoke, and it's got a light, and it's going to be at the New Year's concert.
but don't you love that when they were talking about it, Mickey went, I know a guy. You're the guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then O'Teal's playing on stage, and his freaking joint lifts off from the audience. Did you know that was going to happen? Did you know about that?
I had heard. It
Okay.
wasn't kept totally a secret from the band, but still, I wanted to see it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but I know to expect. But it's just like, again, you have this progression in your life, and but the final one is Mickey Hart calls you, and now we're in the final level of bananas.
Oh, yeah.
So great, man.
The director of transportation.
One of the things that I love this, and there's maybe a couple of different examples of this that you could give, but I always tell the story of when I was back there and you have me back in the room and I'm like holding Yoda's head in my hand, it's like this big. And they had these old cameras like from black and white film where you're like, there's the camera and then there's this big light thing with the bulb and it goes, hey, kid, let me take a picture of you, sir. And the light goes like that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you like pull the thing down and you show me and then you like disconnect the handle and you hand it to me and you go, look familiar? And I'm like, shit, this is a lightsaber? This old ass ancient thing is the most modern, like, you're like, I think that was Vader's. I'm not sure which, and I was just like, so that whole, that's magic, that transformation. It's like somebody looked at that and went, hey, I got an idea. This could be like, that thing that you guys do it's alchemy. That's just mind blowing.
It's fun. And here's something you were talking about. There's no such thing as coincidences. So when I was still working on getting into the industry, and then for a little while after I had gotten in, I was working at this bar in Mill Valley called the 2 a.m. Club, and it's just down the street from the Sweetwater. And Bobby was actually on the softball team there and everything like that. And we had a doorman named Mopar, Bill Montgomery. But Mopar was a big hulking guy, greasy ponytail pulled back in a rubber band and everything like that. And he was our doorman. Nobody messed with Mopar. And he was a big teddy bear. He was like Cherokee in that aspect.
Yeah.
And Mopar would tell us about how, back in the day, I'd build things for the Grateful Dead. Because he had a fabrication shop in San Rafael. And he told us how he built the Beast, and then how he was proud of one thing in particular. He would always tell us about this, and our eyes would sort of kind of glaze over. And he's like, you know what? I built Mickey's beam that he has out on tour for him. And we're all like, oh, that's great. The beam. What the hell? And the thing is that I loved Mopar, and I would go over a shop and, fabrication, and he had his mills and his lace and everything. And he took ill and he had to close down the shop. I bought his lathe and his mill.
Oh, wow.
And Bill Walton's beam and the first one Mickey has were built on the same mill and lathe that Mopar used to make the first touring beam and that Mickey had played right up until this point. And Mopar passed in 2011, and so I wasn't able to start making these until it was 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
But there is a continuance of the beam makers, as it were.
The same tools. Yeah, really. Wow.
The brotherhood of the beam.
And I asked Mickey, I said, hey, do you remember Bill Montgomery? And he goes, or Mopar? And he goes, Another time I asked him again, because sometimes you have to ask him a couple of times. And he goes, yeah, I do remember that name. And I was going through the road box, his onstage road box. And in the top, I was cleaning it out because it was just so much junk in it. And in the top drawer, in the back corner, there was something stuck underneath in the side of the drawer. And I yanked on it. Bill Mopar Montgomery, fabrication and repair machinist. It was his card that was still in Mickey's box.
Wow. How neat.
Yeah.
And the circle closes.
Exactly. I mean, if you told me I would have been building things for the Grateful Dead 20 years ago, I'd be like, you're out of your freaking mind.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, man. But you have all these things. Colonel Bruce was the one that told me that that Weir and Mayer have the same birthday.
Yeah, I didn't heard that.
Yeah.
What was it, 2 years ago? I was like, wow.
I was talking to Mayer because we were trying to figure out which songs that we both knew, because we're learning the first 50 songs or whatever, And I said, is it true that you and Bob have the same birthday? He said, October 16th. I was like, holy crap, Colonel Bruce was right. He's like, who's Colonel Bruce? I was like, oh, that's a can of worms, But and Brent Midland and Clemente have the same birthday.
Yep.
And me and Rose Solomon have the same birthday. And
oh, you do?
Yeah. I mean,
that's right.
She's the first one at rehearsal, at those first rehearsals. I can't. There's two people I could never imitate. It was Alan Woody and Phil. I can imitate most people. I can kind of get it, But those two, I'm like, it'll never happen. I just knew. I was like, they're uncatchable. I couldn't do it. And so I'm trying to find my way through this thing. It's just like you. We're feeling around the dark. We have no idea how we're going to make this happen.
Right.
But we just know it either is or it isn't. It's just binary, And we had this one jam, and it just I think it just, the chemistry, you just got to listen to each other, and you kind of mill around, and then all of a sudden it's going like this. That's it. Right. And then I found out later, after we're talking, that we have the same birthday, So I knew it was no coincidence that she's the one that gave me that confirmation or that affirmation, yeah, go, just keep following your instincts. And I just love that, man, because I think there is a mystical thing that drives this whole thing. And when you follow your dreams, you have now put yourself on that road, the yellow brick road. Now you activated it. But it doesn't happen if you don't A, dream, and B, just take a shot in the dark, man. It's like when Luke goes, all right, no tracking. I'm just going to do this, there's that part of you just taking that leap of faith. And then you have these magical lives to tell stories about, yours, Sean. That's just, I'm sure there's 5,000 more stories that you got, All right, we love you, Sean, man. Bless you, brother.
Cheers. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you soon.
See you soon.
Absolutely.